Why you shouldn't retire in Arizona. I'm telling you, my friends, this is what scares me to death about Arizona, and maybe other states out in the Southwest too. We lived in Arizona. My wife and I got married, had our first child in Arizona. We bought our first house in Arizona, in Phoenix. So we're very familiar with it. I've always liked Prescott, Winkleman, was it Snowflake? I've always the northern parts of going through Flagstaff, Prescott Valley, all that stuff is fantastic. Love it. In fact, it's interesting too because if you look, I keep Prescott on my tabs for my weather thing. So right now, Prescott is 61 and Phoenix is 75. That's the way it always is. Prescott is always like 15 to 20 degrees colder than Phoenix. It's awesome, and it gets even a little bit of snow on occasion. I tell you, my biggest concern with Phoenix, it's a desert, or Arizona generally is a desert. You know what doesn't have abundance in the desert? Water. You know what you need? Well, you need oxygen, you need water, and then you need food. You can live, 2 minutes without oxygen, 2 days without water, and 2 weeks without food. No water, and you're in a world of hurt. So check this out. Western states face first federal water cuts. And this is from Click on Detroit for some reason. That's weird. But anyway, that's a weird. No boats. Okay. Anyway, the U.S. officials on Monday are expected to declare. This is a Dateline just the other day, right? It was, didn't I have a Dateline on here? Oh, August 16th. U.S. officials on Monday are expected to declare the first ever water shortage from a river that serves 40 million people in the West, triggering cuts of some Arizona farmers next year amid a gripping drought. Water levels at the reservoir in the Colorado River, Lake Mead, have fallen to record lows. Along its perimeter, a white bathtub ring of minerals outlines the high water line where water once stood, underscoring the acute water challenges for a region facing a growing population and a drought that is being worsened by hotter, drier weather brought on by climate change. Yeah, I mean, maybe, but that has nothing to do with us, but certainly climates do change. States and cities and farmers and others have diversified their water sources over the years, helping soften the blow of upcoming cuts. But if the current conditions persist or intensify, additional cuts in coming years will be more deeply felt. Lake Mead was formed by building the Hoover Dam in the 1930s. Basically, it's the Colorado River. It is one of several man-made reservoirs that store water from the Colorado River, which supplies drinking water, irrigation, and hydro to Arizona, California, Colorado, Nevada, New Mexico, and basically parts of the West. So you hear that? They basically dam up the Colorado River, and they have these little leg or arms that reach out so you can drink from those things. So it's all based on the Colorado River. The Colorado River goes dry, or the water rights go south because of a fight among politicians. You, my friends, are in a world of hurt. When we lived in Phoenix, they used to do irrigation. I'm sure they still do, which is when they'd allow so the farmers, like there's a lot of Mormon farmers in Phoenix, and what they do is they have these pipes, these waterways. The aquaculture, you know what I'm talking about. What the Romans used to do. Anyway, whatever it is. And so they have these waterways, and you have to go about in the backyard once a month, and you turn on the pipe, and you let it just kind of, it moisten your yard. It full your yard up, and then at night you had to turn it off. Later on that day, turn it off. So you go out there, and it's probably get 3 feet deep, and you reach down there, turn on, and then there's actually people who did this for a living. They'd go to each house and turn on the waters and turn it off. Crazy, very interesting. But once a month, I said that was the craziest thing I've ever seen. So it's nice because what it did there is it took the water and it fed all your plants. And so we had massive grapefruit trees, pomegranates, oranges. It was fantastic. Once a month they did that. It's just irrigation. It's fantastic. I'm sure they still do it, but it's all contingent on having water from the Colorado. All right, but water levels at Lake Mead and Lake Powell, the river's 2 largest reservoirs, and I find it funny too, don't forget, the hydropower is supplied from the Colorado by damming up the Lake Mead, damming up the Hoover Dam. Hydro, interesting. Let's see, the water level has been falling for years and faster than experts predicted. Experts, what do they ever get right? Scorching temperatures and less melting snow in the spring have reduced the amount of water. Huh? Scorching temperatures and less melting snow? That seems to be odd odds, but anyway. Have reduced the amount of water flowing from the Rocky Mountains where the river originates before it snakes southwest into the Gulf of California. We're at a moment where we're reckoning how we continue to flourish with less water. It is very painful, says a lady from the Kyle Center of Water Policy at Arizona State, John Kyle. I just hate when these politicians, they take taxpayer money and they get the place named after them. I hate that with a passion. That should be illegal. How is the river shared? Water shared. Water stored in Lake Mead and Lake Powell is divvied up through local agreements or legal agreements among the 7 basin states. Again, we talk about Arizona, Nevada, Colorado, you name it. The federal government, Mexico, even. The agreements determine how much water each gets when cuts are triggered in the order for which the parties have to sacrifice some of their supply. Under a 2019 drought contingency plan, Arizona, Nevada, California, and Mexico agreed to give up some shares of the water to maintain their water levels at Lake Mead. The voluntary measures weren't enough to prevent the shortage declaration. Lake Mead supplies water to millions of people in Arizona, California, Nevada, and Mexico. Cuts for 2022 are triggered when predicted water levels fall below a certain threshold. Further rounds of cuts are triggered when projected levels sink even more. Eventually, some city industrial water users could be affected. Lake Powell's levels are also falling, threatening the roughly 5 billion kilowatt hours of electricity generated each year at the dam. 5 billion kilowatt hours of electricity from hydro generated each year is going to be in place here because of Lake Powell not having enough water to run the turbines. You hear that, my friends? We're going to replace it with solar. No. Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, and Wyoming get water through tributaries and other reservoirs that feed into Lake Powell. Water from the 3 reservoirs in those states have been drained to maintain water levels at Lake Powell and protect the electrical grid. All about electricity. Arizona will be the hardest hit and will lose 18% of its water share from the river, or 512,000 acre feet of water. That's around 8% of the state's total water use. Arizona is going to lose 8% of the state's total water use. Whew, an acre foot is enough to supply 1 to 2 households a year. Nevada will lose about 7%. California is spared from the immediate cuts because it has more senior water rights than Arizona and Nevada. Mexico will see a reduction. Farmers in central Arizona, who are among the state's largest producers of livestock, dairy, alfalfa, will see the brunt of the cuts, which is going to be inflating prices for us to consume those livestock, dairy. Look, and don't forget, man, the libs hate livestock. They hate it with a passion. So they love this. They hate hydro and they hate livestock. So any way to reduce water and will have us relying more on less on livestock and more on solar, which you certainly aren't going to keep your quality of life that way, is good for the libs because they hate water, they hate livestock, and they hate hydro. Farmers will likely need to fallow land, as many already have in East years because of persisting drought, and rely more on groundwater, switch to water fishing crops, and find other ways to use less water. Water fishing crops, other ways to use less water, i.e. don't eat meat. Water suppliers have been planned for shortage declaration by diversifying and conserving their water supplies, such as storing water on underground basins. Still, water cuts make it harder to plan. It's a historic moment where drought and climate change are at our door, says a guy from the Central Arizona Project. Man, there is some serious corruption there, if that memory serves, when I lived in Phoenix. Cities like Las Vegas, Phoenix, and Tucson are shielded from the first round of cuts. Can it be reversed? Water levels of the reservoir have been falling since 1999 due to the dry spell enveloping the West and increased water demand because more people. With weather patterns expected to worsen, it's just not true. Experts say the reservoir may never be full again. Well, let's get those golf courses fully green in the desert. I've never understood this. Green in the desert, grass in the desert. I'm going to move from Wisconsin. I wanted grass in my backyard in Arizona. I never understood that. People do that all the time. It's dumb. Don't do that. I'll never move to Arizona. And you might want to rethink it. All right, see ya.